straight into very serious business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is your Business Morning. We're live to you from Lagos, the home of Nigeria's business and the headquarters of all the big financial institutions. This is the show for the next 1 hour from Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Boason Omofaye today. Let's get on with the world of tax. Of course, just a few days ago, last week to be precise, the Nigerian government expanded the pioneer status window for the number of companies that should benefit from what you call a tax holiday if they're doing business right. It was first mooted and rolled out under the Jonathan's administration, but that status, pioneer status program was suspended in September 2015 when the Buhari's administration took office. Then, just about almost 2 years down the line, that suspension has now been lifted, and the Buhari's government has increased the number of companies that will qualify for pioneer status by about 21. Now we have about 71 companies in that list. What's the essence of this via the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is to ease business and galvanize the private sector as the lead engine for rolling out, for getting the economy moving forward. And you can see there on your screen a bit of a summary, a snapshot of what we're talking about from Deloitte, Nigeria. The man who is a partner at Deloitte and who is also the West African tax leader at Deloitte, Nigeria is Yomi Olugbenro. He's joining us live this morning from our Abuja studios. Good morning. It's good to see you once again for the second time.
Boason, good morning. It's good to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
This time around, it's a little bit of hundreds of kilometers away, but it's okay. Let's make good use of it. Now, this pioneer status, let's roll back a little bit for a few, 1 minute or two. Take us back to the Jonathan's administration when the pioneer status program was rolled out. What was the objective back then, and what exactly did you think was achieved before it was suspended in September 2015 by the Buhari's government?
All right. Thank you, Boason. The pioneer incentive had actually been enforced much earlier than the last administration. The enabling legislation is the Industrial Development Income Tax Relief Act. It's a 1971 act. The original compilation of the list of eligible industries and products, was approved by Council of Ministers in 1989. So it's been around for quite a while. But what happened was that over the years, there's been a number of additions, and if you like, what some regulatory authorities call some perversions within the process. And that was the process that led to the suspension in September 2015. The process of suspension actually started much earlier, around 2014, when there was an attempt to articulate more clearly, the objectives of the pioneer incentive scheme and make sure that they're a lot more in tune with current realities. So there have been a lot of high and cry around, some of the administrative bottlenecks around the approval processes, the list of industries and companies that found themselves into that particular list. So in September 2015, the current administration took that bold step to suspend the approvals of new and renewals of applications that were expiring then. So it's that process that has now been finalized. The attempt is to do a holistic review and overhaul, of that particular process, including guidelines for approvals and for eligibility. And what we have approved by the Federal Executive Council and made known to us by the Honorable Minister and the NIPC head is a new process. The rules are a lot more clearer. We have some predictability around timelines for when what is done. 27 additional industries were added, so it's weightier conditions, if you like, also added, and a lot of clearer rules.
Okay, thanks for giving us that taking us all the way long back to the beginning of it all. But again, what exactly is Pioneer Status Program?
All right, thank you. So the Pioneer Status Program, it's an incentive scheme that grants eligible companies and businesses tax holiday for an initial period of 3 years. So tax holiday meaning for companies that qualify and for products that qualify under the Pioneer Incentive Scheme, such businesses won't pay company income tax for an initial period of 3 years. And this is extendable for an additional 1 year or up to 2 years. So you have potentially up to 5 years of tax-free income by businesses that qualify for Pioneer Incentive Scheme. And that's one. Two, dividend paid during those Pioneer periods, which potentially could be for up to 5 years, like I did mention. Dividend paid to shareholders are tax-free. So the typical 10% withholding tax that applies on dividend payment is exempted. And a lot of other incentives, such as ability to recoup losses that you make during those period of 5 years in the period afterwards. And if you also incur capital expenditure during that particular period, you are available to claim allowances upon expiration of that particular scheme. So it's a tremendous tax benefit for companies that qualify.
But the key question, Yomi, is who is a pioneer? If you look at the lists, almost all these companies and these sectors have been in existence, perhaps with the exception of few, even among the new lists, whether it is music production, publishing, television, for example. Channels Television is 21 years old. And I want to ask you straight, if we qualify as a pioneer in broadcasting television, private television broadcasting in Nigeria, for example. So would you say we qualified now at this point in time for Channels Television, for example, even though we're 21 years old?
That's right. So pioneer doesn't necessarily mean starting for the first year. So it's applicable to industries and sectors that haven't developed to the level of scale that is sufficient to galvanize economic development. So if you have industries and sectors that is not yet at the level that could galvanize the kind of growth and development that is desirable in that particular sector, such businesses, such industry do qualify. And there are also instances where exigencies of public interest could also make particular industry or particular sector qualify for pioneer sector incentive. And more importantly, within the context of the economic recovery and growth plan and the objective of the administration, sometimes it is desirable to use the instrumentality of this scheme to direct the flow of funds and the flow of investment into a particular sector that the government desire or regard as very critical to the development of the nation. So yes, broadcasting is going digital, so there's some significant amount of capital investment that is required in that area. And as a way of encouraging new entrants and existing businesses in that particular space, it definitely do qualify. And it's one of the areas where we have additional coverage in the new list that was just recently announced. So we have service industry coming on the list. We have the entertainment industry, motion picture, photography, television, music production, and all of those other areas that you projected to us in that slide that you just showed us now.
Yeah, thank you very much. You are the one that provided the slide. I will just push it out for our viewers. Thank you very much. But let's get to where this conversation is going to look test a little bit hot, and that was the tax drive. Revenue from the tax end is a very naughty one for this administration, and it's always been very naughty for previous administrations, really, anyway. But with recession, it takes a new form of dynamism and urgency to get more tax in. So how do you think President Buhari and the rest of his team balancing the tax drive for more tax on one hand, and on the other hand, saying there's going to be a tax holiday for 71 industries in the total in an economy where the formal economy is relatively small?
Well, all right. So that's a very interesting twist to the conversation, Boason. But as you know, taxation is a consequence of business and profitability. So you need to earn income. You need to be engaged in productive activity and have something on the bottom line before tax could be applied, currently at 30% for the corporate income tax rates. So what has happened at the moment is that the productive sector of our economy is largely indolent. So government needs to use this particular incentive and scheme to galvanize activities in that particular area. So it's a matter of whether you want to keep taxing 30% of something very small, or you just want to allow 3 to 5 years for the kind of scale that when you apply the 30%, it becomes hugely significant. The telecommunication sector is a very good example. So when GSM was rolled out into the country, most of the new entrants into the market enjoy this tax holiday that we're talking about. And look at it, 3 years or even 5 years now look like very small compared with the amount of revenue and the amount of earning and the amount of profit that the government is now able to tax. So I think there's a link. The tax doesn't just sit on its own. So there's taxation. There's also the economic development. There is employment generation. There is growth that is desirable in a particular sector, and all of this all added up will eventually benefit the country a lot much more than resistance and avoidance of this kind of incentive.
A final question. We started this conversation and you spoke so well about what the problems have been for this particular pioneer tax status program over the years in Nigeria. And of course, there are reports of abuses and what have you. What makes this going to be tough? What new thing is the Buhari's administration put in place this time around to ensure that we don't come back in another 2-3 years, perhaps in another administration, and we're rolling back all over again and saying, hold on a second, we have to prove some folks, we have to prove some industries, some companies, perhaps some individuals, because the pioneer tax holiday was abused?
All right, so the way I see the new guidelines and the development in this space is that we now have, under this scheme, wider coverage, weightier conditions, and predictable timelines. And I will explain each of those. So wider coverage, that's already understood. 27 additional industries have been added. There are 2 of the original 44 lists that were marked for deletion, but they will still be eligible to enjoy the scheme for the next 3 years as part of a transition scheme. Weightier condition, prior to this newly released guideline, the amount of capital expenditure, capex, that is required to qualify is 10 million naira. And that kind of opened it up to all comers, everybody. And that's part of the process that led to the abuse. Now the stakes is higher. You need a minimum of 100 million naira in terms of capex to be able to qualify. So it's not a scheme for everybody anymore. So it's for serious business people, serious investors whose impact will be significant and be quantifiable in the economy. Also, prior to this guideline, there were no specific timelines. So you could put in an application for renewal. You could put in an application for new grant of pioneer status incentive, and for 1 year or even more, you probably don't even know where your application stands and what is going to be happening next. But now we have very clear timelines. Now, if you submit an application for new approvals, you have 12 clear phases that application will go through, and it is expected to be wound down in not more than 25 weeks. If it's a renewal of an application, it is 7 phases process that is supposed to be gone through, and the process is supposed to be consummated within a period of about 15 weeks. And if you just suppose that and look at that within the context of the newly signed executive order by the acting president that grant default approval. And what default approval means is that if you submit an application to any ministry, department, or agencies of government that have very clear timelines set, if that agency of government refuses to give you notice of approval or notice of rejection, then the applicant can deem it as already approved. and you can continue to transact your business as though that approval had already been communicated and documented. So within that particular context, I think government is trying to hold its officials accountable and make sure that there is efficiency, there is predictability, and the overall ease of doing business is improved, and that's what we expect to play out. But the devil is in the detail. We'll watch out for how the implementation runs.
You are the one watching the details. Thank you very much, Yomi Olugbenro, partner and West Africa tax leader from Deloitte, Nigeria. Thank you very much. Of course, we got a bit of clarity there, whether we qualify here. 100 million. I'm sure we're worth more than that on the books. I'm going to check it out. Let's have a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the markets. We missed that earlier on, didn't we? Yes, we got some time more on the program to talk about that. Let's give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back after the break.